coming up on this episode.
Because Living Truthfully is not just a Thursday podcast. We want to make it a movement that is intentional. And so I can be able to call you up on a lunch date and say, how is your journey going?
And yes, I cried a lot by myself. I had all these feelings. I, at some point, plotted to jump off from the tallest building.
A decade is short enough to be just remembered like the other day. But it's long enough for very significant things to have happened within 10 years. So let me ask you, what are some of the significant things that have happened for you in the last 10 years?
Okay, before you leave a message after the beep, I have a confession to make as Living Truthfully's answering machine. There have been many times in the last few episodes of 2019 that I know I have annoyed you, disturbed you, irritated you, and bugged the hell out of you. So, today, I just want to tell you, I plan to continue in 2020. Happy New Year. Ha ha ha.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time it is, wherever you are. Yes, I know it's a new year and we are not changing this greeting. Itabaki tu hivo, hivo. Welcome to episode 46 of Living Truthfully, and it's a new year. Welcome to also 2020, the year that now shows us we are closer to Vision 2030. And I don't know if you look around, you see any progress since, we had Vision 2030. But, well, hapa mahali niko, mi naona progress. But the progress is more personal progress because what a year 2019 was.
And now a word from our sponsors.
As a dad, the greatest gift I can give my family is security around their health. Do you know how the first time you have a child and all of a sudden there are medical expenses that come up that you never knew existed? Well, Minette has a great cover that caters for your young family. This cover is comprehensive and has features such as inpatient limits of up to 10 million shillings. It will take care of premature births, any complications during, after birth, or for both mom and child. For people who don't like the delivery room like me, this is such a sigh of relief because you know at least the finances are taken care of. It even takes care of you when you accompany your child of up to 10 years to the hospital as a caregiver. And that's just the inpatient cover. Outpatient caters for dental, optical, gynecological, urologists, and mental health services and is up to 2 to 3 times higher than other covers in the market. I highly recommend Minette Health, and it can be accessed online. They have made this purchasing process easier by creating a portal where any user can access their services directly from the website. To learn more about this cover, visit their Facebook page, Minette Kenya, or their website, collaborationkenya.minette.com. Buy your family a secure health future with Minette. What a year 2019 was for the podcast. And I brought some 2 guys back into studio. One who had the Queen's English, still has it. And the other one was actually the last interview that we did for 2019. Ladies and gentlemen, in studio, welcome with me, Mr. Edward Wanyonyi. Makofi tafadhali. And Mr. Erick.
Happy New Year.
Kenya. How you doing, bro?
I'm cool.
You well?
Kabisa.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Wacha sana nisalimie mzungu hapo kando yako. Good morning, sir.
Morning, everybody.
What other appropriate greeting can I use for this morning? Top of the morning.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
How you doing, man?
I'm well. I'm cool. I'm fine.
It's good to see you.
Good. We've made it.
Yeah, we made it. Imagine that.
We've made
Imagine that. We've made it.
Yeah.
I bumped into you the other day at a rooftop somewhere.
Yes.
You were looking quite spiffy. You never dress down. Even now, your dressing down is still, I can tell. Umeva kikitu $1,500.
Oh, no. No worries. I'm cool. Good to see you.
It's good to see you too, man.
It's come a long journey.
It's been a long journey. Tell me how 2019 was for you.
Well, 2019 was an experience. It was an experience, and it made me to realize that we can make progress when you're intentional. I think every Thursday I would wait for the podcast and I would call Lee and say,
"Oh, you're the guys who are putting pressure on us, eh?"
Yes.
Okay. Now
Consistency. We had to.
Wow. Yeah, Eric, 2019?
2019 was an interesting year. It had its highs and lows. It threatened to end very low. But it didn't. Thanks to a band of brothers, family, guys around me. I stood up firm at the end.
That's true.
Yeah.
So it feels like for you, 2019 signified an end,
Yes.
but also a beginning.
Absolutely.
And that's interesting because often when something is ending, something else is starting. But we don't always focus on what's ending. Or what's starting, rather. We focus on the end.
Sure.
Do you feel that way, Edward?
Yes. Our society is set in a time-bound space that looks at a destination. We don't bring the perspective of reoccurrence, birthing as it is, And so sometimes you find that we verbalize our conversations in terms of conclusions. And we conclude on someone when we don't know really when they're going to rise up again.
That's true.
And my personal belief when I watched Tiger Woods making his debut again, I said, we need to rethink our perspective about concluding on people, concluding on situations. There is an opportunity for a rebirth. There's an opportunity to come back again. And as I was listening to Erick's podcast, I was saying, this is the moment, this is the Phoenix moment, when you can just rise up again, And so my clarion call for 2020 as I move forward is we are not looking at one chance, second chances, third chances. We're looking at 10th chances. We're looking at 50th chances. We are giving people a new lease of life and saying you can remodel, you can recover, you can pick up the pieces, you can move on, you can do it again. You can dust up that CV, you can start afresh and make a progress.
I really like that proposition. I like it because I feel like my life is a lot like that. I don't know what chances. I'm trying to figure out how to make this personal for us. So for you, Edward, what's the 10th chance that 2020 brings for you?
I think it ushers me to a new space. 2012, to just go back, I started a movement for training journalists who are interested in reporting on issues to do with disasters after experiencing the Sinai fire. And after looking at how the Sachangwan fire was covered. And so I said, there's a problem. And that was 2012, and we started a few guys. And every time we could stumble, we could try to look for funding. It was not taking up. Later on, around 2016, we managed to get into a partnership with one of the UN bodies, which said, we want to scale up this. 2019 was a resonating year for us because we now moved to 28 countries in Africa.
Wow.
We are now participating at the global stage in terms of the United Nations Disaster Risk Reduction conferences and the global platform. We are reaching more governments. We are able to make pronouncements on this issue. Had we faltered in 2016 when it was dark, had we faltered in 2015 when no one was coming through for us, we wouldn't be where we are right now. And so 2019 brought us to an opportunity where we were now acknowledged as one of the observer bodies for the Africa Union and also for the global platform. And so they are telling us now the conversation we have right now in 2020 is now to move this body, which we made it as an African body. They want to make it a world congress. on reporters across the world reporting on issues to do with disasters. This is something which we started with zero cost, with passion. We'd say we want to make the face of disasters different in Africa. So that level of second, 10th chances coming through is what I'm trying to think and say, we need to teach guys to hold on, to exercise our resilience muscles. Keep on knocking at the door. You need to keep on writing that proposal. You need to keep on doing that hustle until it breaks through.
Wow. Ish. And that's the end of the podcast. We've gotten our motivation enough. Let's have a happy 2020. I'm joking. Eric.
Yeah.
2020. What's your 10th chance? Maybe second, but first. I don't know. What's the chance you're taking?
I am jumping in an open mind. I have suddenly realized, especially during the last 2 weeks, that it's never that bad. Just having to speak out, to speak to people, to, just tell people what it is that you're going through. I got surprised at what I thought was a moment of me reclining and disappearing into that kahole, that so many people have so many ideas. Just speak out. Talk. Let people know the space you're in. You'll be surprised. And here I am. And I think in 2020, I am geared up to great things. For me, it's an year I want to redefine myself. And I believe I have the right tools to do that.
I'm told you were triggered. Eric is seated right next to you here. And but I'm told his story that we shared towards the end of last year triggered you.
Yes. It was a reflex, because when I cleared high school, I started teaching high schools French and drama, and before that 1 year in campus. And what happened is that I met a young man who was in Form 3, and I trained him in Form 3, Form 4. Then he joined a drama club that I had started, and this is a young man who, by all means, it was a day school. He was more or less condemned. He would not get anywhere. But he picked up in the drama club, and they started doing set books. After doing set books, they started doing this participatory education theater for HIV and AIDS. And through that, he was able to get into campus, educate himself, do his master's, successful, working very well. And he was a joy, someone who I could look at to. And so the beginning of this year, I went home and we talked, and we had a drink, we talked, and everything was okay. Then in August, his marriage never worked out. And when his marriage never worked out, what happened is that he went into depression, and no one knew. This is a young man, almost 31.
Wow.
In September, October, he slipped into stroke. And December 6th, he passed on. I was gutted. I was cut into two, and I could not even bring myself to go to the morgue, leave alone go to the funeral. And I asked myself and my friends, why are we leaving these young people on their own? We have to create a chamber of release for them. And so I said, I have to be intentional about this thing. We have to provide a catharsis. And right now I'm working with around 4 to 6 men who have gone through serious experiences with their relationships, and they're struggling. And one of the things which I'm doing is to work with them and tell them, you can vent at any time. You can call me, we can talk about this. And 2 of them have actually this December moved forward and even taken their children and gone on holiday. It gives me great success and comfort that they have not left their children behind. They are working with their children, even with the pain. And I was telling them, you need to accept the pain is there, the grief will be there, but we have to be intentional about this, that we will walk through this fire together. And so for me, this is how we're going to rewrite the script of masculine pain and masculine victories in our generation.
was a sad story.
What are you thinking?
That was sad. That young man at 31.
Yeah.
1 year from life, full life,
Yeah.
to death in a year.
The guy was gymming every 3 days a week. So we could not even anticipate at any time. But you see, no one was able to detect it until when he was in stroke. That's when people are saying, hey, by the way, he's been having stress. Oh, by the way, he's been going through depression. And I was like, why is it that I wasn't called, or no one alerted? But the question is like, you guys are in Nairobi, you are too busy. And that cut me. And that's why I'm saying right now I want to be very intentional.
I'm telling you, I'm lucky. I was in that space, and yes, I cried a lot by myself. I had all these feelings. I at some point plotted to jump off from the tallest building. It's a painful experience. It's the worst place to be. I mean, with no one to talk to, you don't think anyone will understand you. Everyone thinks you're doing good. I pity that young man.
Yeah. He went through pain that we cannot be able to express, and that's why for me, I'm making it deliberate in 2020. We have to be available one way or another. Let people know they can, even if it means to have a toll-free number or an extra line. I'm willing to take up that chance and say, I'll have a line. We'll have that Living Truthfully page. Let people know they have someone they can talk to, and someone who can help them to know that, I mean, at the immediate stage, there is hope. Because this narrative that is being peddled around, men are pro-femicide, men are pro-homicide, we have to turn it around by seeing men who can be able to give life, preserve life, protect life, including their own.
Let me ask you, if you don't mind, Edward, how old are you?
37.
37. Eric?
I'm 45.
45.
Yeah.
I'm 38, and I'm having this conversation because, you know, there's a myth about how you should have figured yourself out by a certain age. You know, that I felt that I had to have my need together. I'm trying. My producer usually checks my language. I have to have my things together by a certain age, and I thought I did. By 30, I thought I did. Then I didn't. And now I'm redefining myself, and I'm starting to see that this happens at every stage in life. I have friends in their 50s who are redefining themselves. I have friends who are finding new things to get excited about at retirement. So what do you tell someone who thinks they have failed now because they don't have what they thought they'd have by the age they are?
I'll go back to concepts that we always want to apply to our socialization context. And that aspect that you're talking about is about determinism. That you want to
say that word again.
Determinism.
Okay.
So that you are determined by 25 to have done this.
Yes.
Or you should have done this.
Yes.
And the society sets that script and pattern for you, forgetting that you're very unique, and the circumstances that produce and also the skills you have might actually require you to detour, and it is okay to detour. It is okay because the 90th minute has not yet come. So why should you leave the pitch? You can learn to play through defeat. And that is one of the concepts that we get from sporting, you know, that teams play through defeat and they play together. So the question I'll ask is, one, what is your team? And are they cheering you on? Are they supporting you? Are they motivating you? Number two, do you have the ability to understand that defeat can also be an impetus that it can actually push you forward, to redraw, to re-strategize, to plan back. The Chinese used to say that retreat is a tactical withdrawal to plan again. So do we have this kind of ability to understand that defeat is not it all? And that is one of the challenges we'll face for our present generation, that men, we are socialized to exercise more our material muscles, to acquire property, to do this, to be able to build our provisional muscle. But when you get into a context whereby the woman is also providing and your provision is declining, then your relevance is turned upside down and you start questioning your masculinity. That is the time you need to plug in to your resilience muscle and start saying, how do I get back again? How do I reset the order again? So that we have a balance in terms of our resilience muscle and our provisional muscle. So that as we provide for our families to be successful and to have all the material comforts that require them to live a dignified life, are we also determined for the hard days when cancer knocks, when burial comes, when our children do not turn out the way we want, and we have to be patient with them until they come back? Are we determined for those moments? It's resetting the script. I think we need to go that direction.
Wow. I don't even know what to add. Eric, what's your response to that?
That's a powerful presentation there. Let me also take you some time back. We had a conversation with you. When I was changing careers, that's about 10 years ago, from insurance to legal profession. I remember I struggled with that decision. But I had a client of mine who I was speaking to, and I was telling him, I don't like my job. He laughed at me and told me, wait, I discovered something when I was your age. And since that time, I redefine myself every 10 years. So that at the end of the next 10 years, he's going to start a new career. He actually goes back to college, studies something new, redefines. He says, every 10 years, I have to do something new. That caught me. And I said, well, I'm ready. I'm here. I actually ended my insurance career, dived myself deep into the legal career, and here I am, 10 years later. And I think I like that presentation because it's never cast in stone. If you find yourself deep in the mud, you have a choice to look at how deep it goes or how far the show is.
I like the 10 years that you're talking about because Edward brought us into the studio today to discuss decade thinking. Decade thinking, what's that?
Basically, it's to realize that life is in phases, and those phases are also opportunities for transition. And now, as we're coming into a new year, 2020, it offers us an opportunity to say, what do we think about the next 10 years? And how do we want to align ourselves and our families and our careers into the next 10 years? How can we look at the trends that are coming forward and prepare ourselves so that we're not caught by surprise? And as a futurist, I tend to believe that we do not need to reinvent the wheel, but we just need to align with the winds that are coming in. And I like what Eric is saying, that it is possible to rebirth yourself because you're trying to shift yourself into a new position as the times is coming. So I am challenging men and families to think about, what did you see and experience in the past 10 years? And what do you think is going to come up in the next 10 years? So that as you're laying foundation for 2020, you're not just laying foundation for January and the nice, resolutions we make at the beginning of the year, which have no metal, which are just nice, you put on Facebook and you forget. We want to deal with foundational issues. At a decade's beginning, you deal with foundational issues, structural issues that can be able to set you on a right course for the next 10 years. And so my preposition is that in the next 10 years, the children who are born in 2000 are going to be joining the civic life. They are going to be joining into the job market. These are young children who have not been well attained in terms of what we went through in our generation, issues to do with resilience, issues to do with, a lot of fortitude, Their thinking is so much based on the technology that has helped to make things work. And so we're going to have a lot of stress You're going to have a lot of strain. You're going to have scarcity of resources. Governments are going to be challenged more because you have a very civic population. As they say, the population that is going to be voting in the next years does not really bother what Moi did.
They have no reference, have no clue.
They have no clue.
They don't know. They won't have the fear that we have of government.
Yes.
Because of how we grew up.
Yes. So they really can't understand why you're talking about GSU from a distance. They don't know about student riots. What? So these are generation which will be very different, and these are generation we'll meet at our workplace. These are generations which we are going to be uncles to, we are going to be parents to, we are going to be mentors to. And so we need to realize that as they're coming into the market, what are we preparing for them? And also as we are raising new children in this new era, how are we going to prepare them for an era which is going to be highly shifty? And that speaks to how we also look at issues to do with emotional capacity. You're having young children committing suicide at an early age. You're having young children who feel anger is totalitarian. It's everything. So they can do whatever they do with their anger. How do we train them to understand that it is possible to receive rejection? How do they know that? But most importantly, I would challenge that this becomes a generation and a decade that men will become more intentional and say there's certain conversations we are going to settle in our era. For example, for your money, as it is right now on the journey you've taken, I'm sure that your children will know that it is possible to go through a process of transition without necessarily breaking them. You've settled that conversation. You've been present through them. The journey has been there. It's been tough, but you've been present. So your children are growing up knowing that whatever relationship dynamic I encounter, I am able to actually focus myself and be present for my children. So those are some of the conversations I would like us to start seeing, that men are thinking and saying, divides that come and transitions that come in our lifetime should not shift us from our core, who we are at our core. So you have to identify your core. And that is what we do in decade thinking. You're dealing with the foundational structural issues like your core values, your core beliefs, your core convictions, where you're coming from, where you draw the red line and saying, my children will not have to deal with this issue again. I'm drawing the line here. I'm saying we can reset ourselves. We can put a new direction in our family. Or you can say, in terms of friendships, I'm going to be intentional. I will seek out my friends. I will be there for them. And so those are the kind of things we want to encourage in this decade era.
Wow.
Maneno mazito.
Senior counsel.
Yeah, and I like that conversation. Oftentimes what would hold us back from that redefining of ourselves is the risk that comes with it. That I am likely to get into a space which I do not know what goes around. I am likely to, first of all, fall as I understand, as I learn mastery of whatever it is that people do around this space as I redefine myself for the next 10 years. When that thought hits you, most often you will want to say, no, I'm comfortable where I am. I don't want to take a chance. I don't want to risk. Let me, first of all, deal with what I have. But as he says, the truth is, if you remain in that space, there is no growth. There is a chance that you'll actually decline further. So why not take that chance? Take the risk. Redefine. Try it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
And now a word from our sponsors.
A couple of months ago, our friends at WeGoPay gave us a platform which you used to support this podcast, Living Truthfully. And we thank you for those of you that have gone through this journey with us. Now, we're going to give you something back. Imagine the possibility of buying airtime and getting some of that cash back. That possibility is now true with WeGoPay Airtime, an exciting new product for all your airtime purchases. WeGoPay is giving you a platform to buy your airtime and get 2% cashback on every airtime purchase. What's better, you can also earn more when you refer people using your unique invite code. You'll earn 2% for every purchase made from your referrals. And that cash is available immediately on M-Pesa, and you can use it to buy airtime or to pay other bills. Use *483*30# to start earning passive income. You purchase your airtime using the pay bill 787055 and use the account number as your phone number. Now I'll do you a solid. Use my code LT001 to start you off. Go ahead, purchase some airtime and get some passive income. And now, back to our story. The moment I heard the word decade thinking, it sounded daunting. It sounded like such a big concept. So what I decided was to look back. And when I did 2009 to 2019, that's 10 years, right? Mm-hmm. A lot has happened in that 10 years for me. Yet, it feels like yesterday. So in 2009, I was 2 years into my marriage. I was 2 years into being a parent. We were making a big purchase at the time. We were purchasing our first home. I was working for a church. Like there was, I can't even remember that person in 2009. Their money then. I transitioned back into corporate in 2009. In 10 years, that business that I'd started in 2007 has ended, has gone, been successful and ended. Marriage has gone, been successful and ended. I've gone through pride and falling. I added another child in that 2009. My son was born. He's 10 this year. Or rather, I was 10 last year. A lot has happened in 10 years. Like life-changing moments. But then it also just feels like yesterday. And then I realized that the 10 years before that, significant things happened. Between 99, which was the year I cleared high school. No, I cleared high school in 98. So the 99, the year, I was just out of school. And 2009, 10 years, 99, I hadn't gone to college. I was trying to go to Stato like everybody else, but it didn't work. I was singing. I thought I was going to be a musician. I honestly thought I was going to be a musician. And between then and 2009, I had formed a career. I had, there was so much progress in 10 years. And why I'm saying this is because for me, it just makes sense that a decade is short enough to be just remembered like the other day. But it's long enough for very significant things to have happened within 10 years. So let me ask you, what are some of the significant things that have happened for you in the last 10 years?
Well, 2009, I was just trying out a difference in terms of my media career. I had not even thought I thought I would be a news anchor. I was doing production. And one of the things I was doing is a program called TV Science, where we'd go and interview researchers around the country. And my sister just brought last week a caption of a newspaper of one of the scientists I interviewed in 2009, who right now is actually very close to introduce a vaccine, an antiretroviral vaccine.
Wow.
And I was like, 10 years. How would I have thought about it? So that was 2009. 2010, I got my son, and I was hopeful, thinking that now, marriage is going to work and everything is going to work. It never turned out like that. And I went through a major period of depression. And so everyone else in my family had gotten married in church. And so there was a pressure of how will Edward turn out, and it would just seem like I'm not getting it right. And in the middle of 2013, I got an opportunity to get a scholarship and go to study. And that shifted completely my life in terms of my consultancy, in terms of my practice. And I came back and was telling my brother, you can start afresh. He had a court case and it was dragging on for long. Finally, in 2019, the case ended. And so he's right now in the space of redefining himself, So careers changed for me. I had an opportunity to work at a different space, which I never imagined I would work at, in terms of working with the global bodies and regional bodies, and just thinking differently in terms of how governments work, how systems work. But most importantly, I've come to be more attuned with my emotional side, to be more attuned with my traumas, to be more attuned with my defeats, to be more alive to my losses, to be aware of my failures, and to now differently verbalize my progress. That has been a significant turn, so that I'm not looking at myself as a case closed, but actually a case in progress, a live case. There is no determination yet. The verdict has not been reached. So anything can change, and it can actually, and it's going to change to my favor. So that has given me a level of resilience, a new fighting spirit. And now as I stand here, I'm focused. And I was telling Lee, we need to be intentional about this. We need to be intentional about this and make this message go out to more men, that they can rediscover themselves, they can pick themselves, they can change their narrative and their story. So for me, that is, I'm closing 2019 with a new zeal of rebirth, of doing it again better.
Senior Counsel.
Powerful,
eh? Tell me, what has you reminisce over your last 10 years?
My last 10 years has also had some events. I closed 2008, started 2009, as I just said, a new person. Just stopped my legal career, jumped in my insurance career, jumped into legal, actually went to Kenya School of Law to finish the postgraduate diploma. I resigned my job to go and do that.
Wow.
So 2009 was a new year for me. My son was born during that period. 2 years later, my daughter came. During that period again, after I finished my postgraduate diploma, pupillage, blah, 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 I got into a new job. The partnership I found there, a powerful one. They liked me. After working for 2 years, they didn't want to lose me. They told me, they proposed to take me in as a partner. 1 year down the line, they breached every covenant we had made. I went down a bit, redefined myself during that 10 years, came out, started my own practice. Still during the same 10 years period, I discovered my marriage was getting rocky. A third party had gotten into it. So that took me into depression, serious depression, to the point of contemplating suicide, actually. That didn't happen. I also, I think during that season, came into the space of getting back into church, accepting Christ, working with men in church. During that 10 years period also, I have come to get to know a few powerful men here and there who I'm standing with. So it has been a roller coaster for me, ups and downs. It ended in a very sad note, having to walk out of marriage now officially. And yet it ended in the space of realizing that it's really not an end. It's a new beginning for me. So yeah, 10 years has been a roller coaster. Looking forward to a powerful
to the next 10.
10 years.
Wow. It's amazing how when you look back, you realize so much has happened in 10 years. Like such significant things. For me, it blows my mind. But what it does, it also gives me hope. It gives me hope for the next 10. I'm like, if those last 10, and I was not being intentional about them, have been that significant, how about when I can be intentional? You mentioned something before we discuss the next 10. In a previous conversation, you mentioned something, emotional capital. You said a word, emotional capital. Let's discuss it. What's it?
I'll just take it from the scripture that says, Lord, teach us to number our days. You know, and that for me sets the tone in terms of how we should be able to think through the coming years, especially when you're going to have periods of high stress, high strain, and scarce resources, and you have to go through that period. And where emotional capital comes in, for me, it is the ability for us to endure and to remain strong, calm, collected in the midst of very disruptive forces. And I'm going through a phase which is very interesting because my son and my daughter, born 2 years apart, different mothers, and I had to take them to court so that there is a clear line of my access and my relationship with my children. It's not interfered. And I contemplated that, and I said, the court says the mother stays with the custody of the child up to 18 years. And I asked in my prayers, do they want to give me a broken child after 18 years? And I said, I can't stay and wait, because the next 10 years are going to determine, and I want to be very deliberate and intentional in participating in my children's life. And so I said, let me go to court and seek how these orders can be enforced in terms of my access, so that I can start modeling these children in the image and likeness of what I want as a father for them to have. That when they step at 18, when they look back at their lives, they are saying, our father was intentional about this, and he wrote a new script about this whole issue. And so for me, it is not just about the material provision, but I'm drawing back into my emotional capital and saying, how do I navigate in this tight space and maintain a level of sanity in all this? And so it is a shifting, whereby you have like a 22-wheeler that it has to shift at a tight space. You go back, go forth. You drive over the curb, but you're shifting. You're making adjustments. It might mean you have to detour a bit, but you're shifting. That is the most important thing. It might mean that you're not going at the pace everyone expects you, but you're shifting. You know, it might mean that you're not speaking the language everyone is speaking, but you're shifting. And that is the most significant effort that comes when you have that emotional capital, that you are able to draw from within yourself and push yourself to a destiny that is occasioned to set you on a path of progress, because you're dealing with a foundational issue. You cannot achieve that if you don't have that emotional capital. Number one, closely related to that is the issue of empathy as a capital resource. We're having people who are broken. We're having people who are damaged. How do you reach out to them? How do we become conscious of the fact that they are also going through their own struggles, their own journeys? And so I say, as a child, you go through primary trauma. As an adult, you go through secondary trauma of some of the decisions you make yourself, which have consequences, and other decisions other people make, and the impact on you. If you combine the primary and the secondary levels of trauma, you have tertiary trauma, which is just a mixed pot. The other person you're also dealing with, maybe your spouse, maybe your business partner, is also coming from the same space. How would you navigate in such an environment if you don't have empathy? And I think our resonance as men, we will make a positive signature if we draw on this emotional capital and the empathy as a capital, because that's where we can draw and tell our children we can be different in this space.
Wow. The wisdom this guy is chucking,
Emotional capital.
Yeah, and empathy as a capital. But you know what? I agree with it, because one of my things as I get into 2020 was a lesson I learned in 2019 which defined integrity as feeling what you're feeling. For me, that was one of the most profound conversations I've had, where I was told it's not just about doing what you said you would do, which is how we've often defined integrity. Integrity is also feeling what you're feeling. And for me, that changed a lot, because then I am the king of sweeping emotions under the carpet.
We all are.
No, boss. This guy on the other side of the booth the other day told me I have no emotions. Lee.
Yeah.
He's just there, just nodding. It's true. So that's what he said.
Yes.
And then you and your good wife reenacted my lack of emotions right here. Because when I'm excited and when I'm sad, sometimes I have the same tone, you know? And it's because I learned as a child to suppress and repress emotions, you know? Some emotions, but it became like anger. So I was taught to repress anger, and so I don't show anger, and so I don't feel, in quotes, angry, and so I don't show it. But when I learned how to repress anger, I learned how to repress everything else. Now someone tells me integrity is feeling what you're feeling. So basically, you're giving me permission to feel every emotion that I feel. You guys, I've just understood something. That unless we let men feel their emotions, we will never get real empathy from men.
It's true.
It's just hit me, man, that the reason I've lacked some empathy, and maybe this is why feminists get angry with men, because we don't seem to feel the things they feel we should feel. It's because I've learned to repress emotions all my life. And there's no way I will feel empathy if I can't feel anger. There's no way I'll feel empathy if I can't feel sadness. Or feel fear. Like, we need to allow boys and men to feel those emotions, because those are the ones that then translate into empathy when it's needed. And you're right, the world without empathy, man, it's broken.
Savage.
Yeah. And emotional capital. I like that conversation. That we also need to be ready to change our mindset, our thinking, and embrace, even change towards that other person that is around you, and how you can react towards it positively, because society has redefined what a man ought to be, has defined that, for instance, as you say, a man ought not to cry. You're the king of the house. You give directions. Certain things can't happen if you're a man in your area. But what I hear him say is that he went back to court to have orders reviewed because he wanted to participate more in those children's lives. Yet, if you look at the law, you look at precedents, there's a way it is expected that children of this age can only be in the custody of the mother. You, as the man, you can only have, for example, restricted access. He challenged that. Not because he had an issue with those women.
The parents, yeah.
But because as a man, he wanted to participate more. So he had to go through an internal shift that I'm not having a fight with anyone. But I, as Wanyonyi, I want to do this. I want to have more say in the lives of these children. So and you let the other parties know, I'm not fighting you. No. Let's work together. You still have retained physical custody of those children, but I want more access to them. I want to participate more. So that you even invite them to the space of, let's not go to court for a fight. Let's go to court to work together for the benefit of these children. That calls for a deeper change of self. That, this is not a fight I'm having. But I've noticed the other side is behaving like this. And what I had in my mind is that as a man, if things don't go this way, I'm going to react this way. But now you realize, no. It doesn't have to be that way. That emotional capital is what I would also say I'm trying to invest myself in it. That when I step out, I do not want to be defined outside there by other people. I want me to define how, first of all, I want myself to feel and how my outlook is going to be. And then you guys look at me and appreciate what I am. Not what the society says, but it's what you want. This is what I exactly want.
I have a question for you, gentlemen. The next 10 years, what do you want? And what are you going to do about it?
For me, I want to be intentional on one thing. I want to be intentional in increasing my participation in my children's lives in terms of making them know that there are certain issues we are settling with them and they'll not have to deal with them when they're parents. I want my daughter to know as she's stepping into teenagehood that I got her back at any time. I want my son to know I got his back at any time. I want my children to know that they have someone they can rely on 24/7. And even if I'm not accessible, there is a team of support system that is of integrity that they can rely to. And so even for me, to their children, I want to be that person who is available. So that my daughter is not going to a hotel room with a man because she's desperate, she lacked cab fare. We are settling that conversation right now. That she will have cab fare whether she likes it or not. If she doesn't want to use it, that is her own decision. Or she'll have someone to pick and take her home. The vulnerability because of lack of a father figure will not be there. We are settling that conversation. I want my children to grow also with capacity of being allowed to grow their emotional capital. And one of the things which I'm very deliberate, even with my son, is to make him to understand passivity is not masculinity. He can be able to express. In terms of career, I'm looking forward to impacting more lives and changing things within my workspace. But also one of the things which is important to me in terms of my social is this conversation about men. I want to be deliberate about it. I want to see how we can raise a new script and a new discourse about dealing with male pain, about men who are able to restructure themselves, rebirth themselves, reposition themselves to become influencers, not as the society defines them, but how they feel in their unique signature, in their unique identity, so that they are men who are pillars. We will not address feminism from a toxic masculinity. We will only address it when we have the right concept of masculinity.
Actually, this year, 2020, is significant for the women. It is 25 years after Beijing.
Yes.
And there's going to be a huge conference in Paris. And I really do want to participate in that discourse. Because I feel like, they started this conversation by making us the enemy. And we are not. And I want to be able to have that conversation and say, how can we be allies in helping the women achieve what they're hoping to achieve in terms of the space that needs to be created for them? Eric, your 20 years, your next 10 years.
My next 10.
What do you want?
I want to be a deliberate change agent. First, I'm Christian. I want to serve. And the way I'm looking at it is that I want to plug in more into serving God and serving men in whatever sphere I am in, both in my career, in the space in church, and also out there. I want to be intentional about it. Secondly, I want to be also a change agent in the area of family, beginning with my own now that I and Madam have gone separate ways, but we have a project of these 3 wonderful kids. So I want to make it very intentional that these children shall continue having a father and a mother. And I want as a father to be in their presence, to walk that journey with them, choose careers with them, help them shape their future in my presence. That's the space I want to grow in, both as a family man, as a career man, but as a man who is serving God.
It just hit me that my children will be adults at the end of this decade.
Yes.
They will be. They'll be adults. Like,
they were teenagers, actually. Yes.
We'll go through teenage.
Yes.
And the transition to adulthood within these 10 years.
Yes.
That freaks me out a little bit, To some extent, I'm like, oh shoot, I don't know if I'm ready, for an adult, an adult child,
Adult conversation.
And adult conversations. I'm looking forward to stop paying school fees, though,
In 10 years.
In about 10 years, I should be done with their undergraduate degrees, and after that, they're on their own. They don't know that, but they're on their own. I'm going to walk into whoever will be the Range Rover dealer just before my 50th birthday, and I tell them nifungie, because all their school fees money is going into a car. Let me just tell you, all the money that used to pay school fees is going into a booty. You know what I'm looking forward to? Significance. I think this last year has taught me the difference between success and significance.
Powerful.
I've tasted success before. It's nice. I feel like significance is better. Unaweza kula nyama kutoka kwa butchery, hiyo ni success. Then when you have a 21-day aged beef from Morendat, hiyo ni significance. Okay? It's both meat, but they're different. And I feel like that's what this last year has taught me. 2019 has taught me significance, and I want to build more on. I was telling some people that I'm now working for my eulogy as opposed to working for my resume. I've done the resume shit. I'm done. Let's work for lifelong change. So that's one. The second thing, I'm making a decision now to live my life fully. To feel what I'm feeling, to not make decisions based on fear. I've become a boring guy because I'm afraid, man. I'm afraid for reputation. I'm afraid that this might not be the right thing for me. What do people think? I'm done. Let's live life. It's short, So I'm gonna indulge in adventure. I'm gonna say yes more often. I'm gonna try. Let me glide from the Himalayas and just let's do something different. And not. I think I became cautious in the last few years because of pain. I became cautious, and that caution kept sucking the life out of me. Does that make sense to you, Edward?
Yes.
Just caution, because you're of all these roles you play.
Yes.
Like, let me be tempered. Let's not rattle the snake. Rattle the bloody snake. My next 10 years are gonna be fearless. I think that's it. They're gonna be fearless. Let me go in as a roaring lion. Let me go in and just see what happens when you live fearless for 10 years. Yeah, that's it. Now I'm excited, actually. I wasn't sure about how I feel about 2020, but I'm excited.
We'll go with him to Himalayas.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, we
I'm
should.
excited. I'm excited
that fighting
about
spirit.
that just that fearlessness. That just live your life. All right. So I'm told you have an excellent thought that you'd like to share with us. What is it?
I think as part of being deliberate about how we support fellow men going through this journey is to think about how we can create living truthfully communities. And these are just teams of 3, 5, 2 men who can just check up on each other, see who is going through a challenge, wake them up, have a conversation with them. Because living truthfully is not just a Thursday podcast. We want to make it a movement that is intentional. And so I can be able to call you up on a lunch date and say, how is your journey going? And rant whatever you want to rant. But then I'll prevent another suicide. I'll prevent a femicide. I'll prevent a homicide. And we need to be intentional about it. So that if Eric here is going through the worst moment, I'm able to walk with him and say, you know what, you're not going to do that. Let's go and look for a house. I know of an agent. Move out of that house. Don't kill someone in the house. But we have to be intentional about it. So that's why for me, I see moving the conversation at the vertical level. You can have now the partnerships and the sponsorships that we have with companies, which we can go and talk to men in at their workplaces. We can talk to men at their clubs, at their professional organizations, associations. We can have sessions to talk about this conversation. But at the horizontal level, we have various communities of men, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, who can just meet up and be intentional about it, checking on each other. You're going for a court case. Let me walk with you. Let's just sit there and see what he says. You're going through a funeral. There are people who are there. It's as practical as it is. If we can have time to go and cheer Manu, we can do living truthfully.
Erico, what do you think?
Oh, it's powerful, man.
From your recent experience, how does it fit in?
It fits in very well because when just before I got into that space and I was wondering, okay, so where am I going? What should I do here? If I didn't have people to speak with, if I didn't have someone to tell me, hey, just come, leave that place, come into my house, the doors are open. If I didn't have that, I don't think I would be seated here discussing with you what we are discussing now. So living truthfully would make so much sense because there are people out there having a conversation with their pillow, just crying. And you don't know, the next morning they'll wake up, pick up a panga and slash everybody. Or climb the tallest building and jump just because they do not have that space to speak out.
You know what? We said starting fearlessly 2020, right?
Yes.
So let's figure it out. LTCs,
Yes.
living truthfully communities. Let's figure it out. And if you'll allow me, gentlemen, let me close this conversation here. I want to tell people that the opportunity for you to start again is entirely up to you. It's not a big significant thing that will happen out there. Whether what you want to do and to be is going to happen one day, or whether today is going to be day one of that, it's entirely up to you. And Edward has said it here. He said 10 chances, second chances, 10th chances, 50th chances. Who's counting?
Just do it.
Just do it. And when you fail, stand up and do it again.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work in the first 6 weeks, it's okay. Pick it up again and keep going. Because you know what? That's what progress looks like. It's the beginning of a new decade. 2020, it's significant. Some might even say it's spiritual. Don't let this be just another year. Don't let it be, I tried last year, I'm just gonna coast through life. Wherever you are, whatever you've ever dreamt of, this is your chance. Take it. And for you gentlemen in studio, Take it, man.
I'm taking it.
We're taking it.
Take it. Because I want you here at the end of the year. And I want us to take stock of year 1 of 10. Year 1 of 10.
Amen.
And let's just report progress after progress. And every battle we go through will report victory.
Amen.
Because it's not what you're called. It's what you answer to. Happy 2020, folks.
Happy 2020.
Happy 2020.
Thank you, gentlemen.
God is making a way for you. Yes, yes, making a way for. Yes, every season in my life should be bringing me closer to what I should be. Yes, making me stronger in the winter snow. Making me shine in the darkest low. God, let your light shine, have your way with me, please. And if it don't break, it's only making me, making me more than what I thought I'd be, yeah. Taking me places never thought I'd see. He gave me favor. He saw me faithful, yes. Ooh, and he's making a way for you. Ooh, making a way for you. God is, yes, making a way for you. Making a way for you. He is, you should be grateful. He is making a way for you. Ooh, yeah. Making a way for you. He's making a way for you. Making a way, making a